Welcome to a very special episode of Untold Legends, Resident Evil Timeline City of the Dead 2.0, Chapter 1. You may remember the City of the Dead title from the currently existing Chapter 2 of the Resident Evil Timeline. After more requests for this than anything else on the channel, I mean anything else, it was hard for me waiting this long to do it. But with the knowledge that Resident Evil 3 was also getting a reimagining, alongside Resident Evil 2, patience was key. Well, the time is here, the time to revisit the events of Raccoon City. This video will not be a replacement of the original, but a full-blown altered version of those events, using the reimagined versions of Resident Evil 2 and 3. After all, there would be no point in doing this if it wasn't significantly different from the original. Quick message to the ever-watchful canon police. In this video there will be some assumptions, a mix of canon events, non-canon events, possibly non-canon events, added dates, and more. So if you tell me that 4D Executor is non-canon, I'm gonna assume you skip this message altogether. And since it's an altered version of events from the original, some details may clash with Part 3 of the timeline and above. And real quick before starting, I'd like to introduce today's sponsor, my Patreon. If you'd like to help support the channel and allow me to continue making videos just like this one for all time, you can become a patron for as little as the cost of a Jill sandwich a month. Never required, but always appreciated. Link in the video description below, or you can head over to patreon.com/GamerThumbTV. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to all my current patrons and channel members supporting the content. You are all beautiful people. Thank you guys. Let's get this started.
Hey, this is Nick Apostolidis, the voice and mocap actor of Leon S. Kennedy, and I'd like to welcome you to the Resident Evil Timeline City of the Dead 2.0. Raccoon City, Pennsylvania.
Once a small, quiet town, quickly expanded into a huge metropolis under the leadership of Mayor Michael Warren and funding from the Umbrella Corporation. In its public appearance, Umbrella presented itself as a corporation bringing the citizens of Raccoon City a healthier lifestyle and creating more work opportunities. But underneath the surface, Umbrella was bribing city officials at its highest levels. Mayor Warren, Raccoon City Police Chief Irons, sewer managers, leaders well aware of Umbrella's more illicit activities. Umbrella used the city's expansion to construct a massive underground network. While civilians lived their everyday lives and worked above ground, underneath the city a labyrinth of multiple secret laboratories existed, with interconnected transportation systems for employees, hidden areas where Umbrella could continue their research and development of viruses and bioweapons, using innocent people as test subjects. One particular program was headed by Alex Wesker, another child produced by Umbrella's Wesker program. Alex became obsessed with experimentation in human fear and how it could be used to create and test bioweapons, and she authorized the kidnapping of several Raccoon City youths. These test subjects were thrust into combat scenarios against bioweapons, and their intelligence levels were tested in multiple death traps. But no matter their progress, the victims were only kept alive to collect combat data. Whenever Umbrella was satisfied with the data collected, the victims would be disposed of. Valerie Harmon was a young graduate from Raccoon University. Her intelligence and research on healing technology caught Umbrella's eye, and she was given an opportunity for an internship at their Nest 2 facility, below Raccoon City. She developed a friendship with co-worker and roommate Yoko Suzuki, but Yoko was involved in top-secret research projects and began developing amnesia, losing even recent memories. Valerie became suspicious that Umbrella was directly responsible for her condition, but before she could become a problem for the company, she was kidnapped, and Valerie became another victim of their experiments. January Van Sant was a skilled hacker known online to take any job, as long as it paid well enough. One day she was hired by a Raccoon City news reporter named Ben Bertolucci that became convinced Umbrella was making secret deals with city officials. January found overwhelming evidence that Police Chief Irons was receiving large sums of money from them regularly, and uncovered communications between Irons and Umbrella scientist Dr. Birkin. Umbrella was monitoring her and forced her into their experiments. Before her capture, she was able to successfully get some of her findings to Bertolucci, enough for the reporter to begin following the trail to Irons. Martin Sandwich was a young loner that preferred tinkering with machines than socializing with others. He became a victim of Umbrella's test by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The company had been using Spencer Memorial Hospital for its own purposes, and many hidden passageways were meant exclusively for Umbrella employees. Martin was hired for a repair job at the hospital and accidentally discovered a hidden lab. He was knocked out by Umbrella security and taken away. Becca Woollett was raised outside of the city in the countryside and spent most of her time outdoors. years. Her uncle taught her how to handle firearms, and she became a skilled sharpshooter. As an adult, she decided to make her career working in the outdoors and became a park ranger. One evening, she heard reports of screams near a river in her patrol zone, and she set out to investigate. The T-virus had leaked in the area, and a pack of infected dogs attacked her. Becca was knocked unconscious during the attack, and she woke up in one of Umbrella's testing areas. Tyrone Henry was one of Umbrella's most impressive test subjects. He was a natural-born leader and rose quickly to the rank of captain in the Raccoon City Fire Department. One day a fire broke out in an Umbrella factory, and he was one of the firefighters that responded. He vanished in the flames and was believed to be killed. Umbrella manufactured the accident after finding his genetic profile compatible with one of their Tyrant programs. During the battle with the fires, he was taken by Umbrella and put into the tests. He was gassed and forced into the Umbrella Tyrant program codenamed Thanatos. Samuel Jordan was another Raccoon City resident that influenced another Umbrella bioweapon. He was a rising star in the amateur boxing ring, and his boxing career seemed to have a promising future. But Samuel suffered a critical injury during one fight, and he never recovered. The Umbrella Corporation offered him a chance to regain his physical prowess in an experimental clinical trial. The trial was successful, and his body was back in prime shape, but he awakened in another test, a test for survival. Like Tyrone before him, his genetic profile made him a perfect candidate for the Tyrant project, and he was gassed. Samuel was taken to one of Umbrella's European facilities where they were developing a new type of Tyrant. He was experimented on, tortured, and injected with multiple serums until any shred of his humanity had vanished. He was quite literally a blank canvas for Umbrella to operate on. His body went through similar procedures that would normally create T-103 model Tyrants, but Umbrella had bioengineered a parasitic organism known as the Nemesis Alpha. Originally, the parasites were created to combat the brain damage and mental degradation the T-virus caused, but the organism demonstrated self-awareness and almost human-like intelligence. The Nemesis Alpha was injected into his brain in the hopes that it would create a bioweapon capable of following a specific set of commands. The parasite became the equivalent of a replacement brain. The body mutated into a powerful grotesque husk, and Project Nemesis was deemed a success, creating the only successful Nemesis T-type Tyrant after many failed attempts using Tyrant clones. With so many horrific bioweapons at their disposal, Raccoon City would soon become the perfect location for testing. July 27th, 1998. 2 days after the Spencer Mansion incident, after spending an evening of terror surviving against Umbrella's monsters, Chris Redfield and the surviving STARS members met to sort out the details of the evening. During their investigation, they discovered the truth behind Umbrella and saw the company for what it was. Together, they witnessed their fellow teammates from Alpha and Bravo teams become victims of genetic monsters. Captain Wesker was a traitor and seemingly suffered death at the hands of the tyrant he sought to possess for himself, and Chris destroyed the creature before escaping the mansion's self-destruct sequence. As they discussed the evening in detail, Chris was made aware that Barry had helped Wesker betray the team, and Chris was outraged. Barry and Chris had served together in the same Air Force unit, remaining close friends ever since. His betrayal left Chris shocked, but Wesker had threatened the safety of Barry's family. The guilt Barry felt was incredible, and he had much to make up for. The remaining STARS members met with Chief Irons with their report and found Irons unwilling to believe such outrageous events. Even Brad Vickers stood beside his teammates and supported their story. He may have left Alpha Team behind in the mansion, but he saw the monsters they faced. The meeting turned into a shouting match, and Irons dismissed them. August 3rd, 1998. Over the next couple of days, the team began feeling the after effects of the mansion incident. Chief Irons disbanded the STARS team at the direction of Umbrella, and they began to suspect correctly that he was involved with them. Rebecca left Raccoon City after realizing their story was going nowhere, and decided to take a different path, re-enrolling in university to pursue a career in virology. If she couldn't help the world by taking Umbrella down, she would help society by studying the same viruses they created. Barry was struggling to deal with the memories of the Spencer Mansion incident. Even seeing normal people hunched over would send him right back to that evening, and he began seeing a psychiatrist to help him deal emotionally. Jill also struggled with the fear and paranoia that she might be infected. Realistically, none of them fully understood the T-virus yet. She believed it was possible that they were either resistant to it, or maybe it could have a long incubation period they weren't aware of. Her constant worries and medications caused her to have recurring vivid nightmares. Chris, on the other hand, became obsessed with bringing Umbrella down. He spent his days going through all the evidence they collected, and kept coming across the name Birkin. Brad assisted him in sorting through the evidence, and together they discovered that some sort of new virus was being developed, identified as the G virus. Chris met with his teammates, and together, they agreed that Umbrella had to be stopped, even if it was an operation off the books. Chris and Barry decided to travel to Europe together and investigate Umbrella's headquarters, and Jill would stay behind and keep tabs on Umbrella. Brad pretended to side with Chief Irons in dismantling stars, and was allowed to keep his job as an officer. Secretly, he was feeding information to Jill. August 24th, 1998. The day had come for Barry and Chris to travel together to Europe. Barry knew his family could be a possible target for Umbrella, and he moved them to Canada to get far away from Raccoon City. Chris stopped by the Star's office and left a letter by his locker, claiming that he was going on vacation to Europe. His younger sister Claire had been trying to reach him, but he knew Umbrella was watching them all carefully, and he couldn't afford to put Claire in danger. If she came to Raccoon City looking for him, Jill was supposed to show Claire his letter. After Barry said goodbye to his wife and daughter, Chris and Barry boarded a plane and met one of their old military contacts once they landed. Back in Raccoon City, Umbrella scientist William Birkin was indeed developing the G virus, Golgotha. Just like the T virus, it was derived from the progenitor virus, but G far surpassed T's power. William Birkin originally discovered it in 1988 inside the body of Lisa Trevor. It was capable of causing extreme genetic mutations, even repairing dead cells. Umbrella co-founder Oswald Spencer found its regenerative capabilities interesting, and allowed Birkin to continue developing G into a usable virus. His main laboratory was known as Nest, located deep inside the Arklay Mountains, underneath an Umbrella chemical plant, and connected to the rest of the facilities underneath Raccoon City. From there, he worked alongside his wife, Annette Birkin, to complete his G-Virus. After the STARS mission ending in the destruction of the Arklay laboratory and the supposed death of Wesker, Birkin believed it was only a matter of time before Umbrella was exposed. All he wanted was to complete his research and perfect the G-Virus. If Umbrella went down, his work would be destroyed with it. And so he began preparations to betray Umbrella. Birkin began communicating with his contacts in the US government that were aware of Umbrella's activities, and he offered to sell them the virus. But Umbrella had its own security service known as the USS, and they had moles planted within his lab. Umbrella knew Birkin was attempting to sell the virus, and Birkin hired private security of his own. He knew that it was only a matter of time before Umbrella learned of his betrayal. Umbrella ordered multiple USS teams to infiltrate Nest and surround Birkin from all sides. Their mission was to capture him and retrieve the G-Virus in a mission known as Operation Nest Wrecker. The USS Alpha and Bravo teams prepared to assault the Doctor, and the Delta team known as Wolfpack was present to assist as backup. All teams answered to the leader of Alpha Team, Hunk, a man so infamous within Umbrella's security service, he was looked upon as a legendary figure, and his presence commanded respect. Nobody knew his real name, and he was often the only survivor in the most dangerous missions. Stories claimed he was unkillable, and he even earned the nicknames Mr. Death and Grim Reaper. September 23rd, 1998. It was time for Umbrella to conclude Birkin's employment with the company.
You guys must be the new Delta team. Command, I've rendezvoused with Delta team.
Understood. Now find Birkin and secure those samples. Failure is not an option.
You heard him. Let's move. Guard this door. Do not let anyone approach. You, come with me.
Dr. Birkin, you'll come along with us quietly.
You think I didn't know you were coming? This is my life's work. I'm not handing over anything.
We have our orders, Dr. Birkin. I'll ask you one more time. Hold your fire! We're in, sir. But we had a snafu. Target resisted. We had to take him out. Let's move.
that easily.
Good God, William. What have you done?
No! Over here, you freak! Don't hurt him!
Come on! Birkin injected himself with the G-Virus. There's nothing you can do. Get out of here and make a full report to management.
What are you doing?
I lost the sample. I'm going back for it.
Delta Team Wolfpack escaped and reported the mission's events back to Umbrella, and all communication was lost with Bravo and Alpha teams, including Hunk. Out of desperation, Birkin had injected himself with the unfinished G-Virus and quickly began mutating into an out-of-control monster. His humanity was quickly slipping away. He rampaged through the lab and made it into the sewers, slaughtering any escaping USS soldiers he came across. The G-Virus made him almost unstoppable. He devoured most of the samples, and vials of T-Virus were also broken in the attack, an act that would seal the fate of Raccoon City. Throughout the night, the rats infesting the sewers fed on the T-Virus, and the infected corpses left behind, and the virus made it into the city's water supply. September 24th, 1998. Reports of violence were sporadically being reported throughout the day as citizens were infected by drinking water. In the afternoon, a man attacked a woman and left her mutilated body by a dumpster. He was gunned down by police. Another person reportedly tore into someone's neck at Warren Stadium during a Raccoon Sharks football game, causing a riot. 911 calls spiked as the evening approached. Raccoon Spencer Memorial Hospital began taking in multiple citizens suffering from delirium, but many of the patients displayed extreme aggression and attacked healthcare workers. By nightfall, violence was spreading through different parts of the city, but many citizens were still unaware of the spreading infection. A popular after-work spot for nightlife in Raccoon City was Jack's Bar, where off-duty police officer Kevin Ryman and others enjoyed spending their time.
There was a disruption earlier at today's football match between the Raccoon Sharks and the Old Boy Hunters. Apparently the game was interrupted when an unruly fan got out of control and sparked a riot. The number of injured is not yet known.
Aren't you eating anything? Hey, Bob, where's your mind at?
What?
Huh? What a weird customer.
Who is this guy? Damn it! He's unconscious. Are you all right?
The infected were coming in through the windows and front door in large numbers. Kevin took charge and helped some of the survivors through the upper floors of the bar in an attempt to reach safety, including one of the bar's waitresses, Cindy Lennox, and a security guard called Mark Wilkins. Together, the survivors fought their way through the infected, and Kevin helped Mark's co-worker and close friend Bob walk up the stairs. He was extremely weak, but with no visible injuries. Unknown to them, Bob was suffering from T-virus infection, and his time was quickly running out. Bob knew he was becoming one of the monsters and refused to be a burden to anyone else.
I can't move anymore. I know me, and I'm not gonna be someone else's burden. Bob, stop! No, you don't understand, Mark. I'm no different from them. I feel the hunger. So please let me die while my conscience remains. Oh, Bob.
Kevin used his marksman skills to keep the survivors that he could safe. He'd been an officer for a while and even won a shooting competition held by the Raccoon Police Department. He'd always dreamed of doing something greater than himself, but under better circumstances. In the past, he applied for the STARS unit twice, but failed the screening test twice, perhaps due to his carefree attitude. And he often spent his time after work drinking excessively. On this night, he had to be at his best in order to survive. Down below in the streets, police were warning civilians that blockades were being set up. They had to reach the police checkpoints in order for officers to keep them safe. The few officers placed around Jack's bar were quickly overrun, and law enforcement was being spread thin throughout the city. Kevin had to get the survivors to safety quickly, and his first thought was to get everyone to the police station, but a horde of zombies were in the way. A nearby fuel tank would be the opening that gave Kevin and the others a chance to escape. After crossing through the nearby canal, Kevin met with a fellow officer that gave the group a ride, past some of the blockades, and reached closer to the police station. They'd have to travel the rest of the way on foot, and on a small bridge over the street, they got a glimpse of how desperate the situation was becoming.
Oh, God.
What's taking so long? Hurry up!
I'm trying! I'm almost done! Hurry! Hurry! This way! Okay, it's done! Eric! What should I do?
Kevin rushed down to try and finish what the overrun officers were attempting. Explosives were wired down the street to eliminate the infected horde, and the group opened fire on nearby zombies while Kevin went for the detonator.
Now that was a rush.
The police were scrambling to figure out what their next moves would be, and they began setting up more blockades around the city. It was clear that the situation was becoming worse, and the military was informed. September 25th, 1998. Daybreak. The citizens of Raccoon City were in a full-blown panic, and the outside world had no idea what was happening within the city. Overnight, communications were cut off, the military quarantined Raccoon City, and blocked all pathways in and out. As people tried reaching loved ones within Raccoon City, questions were quickly rising in the public eye. Elements of the U.S. government that were aware of Umbrella's true activities and its connections to the government released a statement that the city was suffering a radioactive spill. Many in the military were also unaware of the actual outbreak and believed the official story, and multiple specialized ops teams were sent in to investigate.
The city's gone to shit. I've never seen anything like this. All right, deploy the special operatives. There's more than just a common cold going around down there. We need to get to the bottom of this.
We have visual on civilians.
What the fuck? You're authorized to use force on any hostiles.
The military found the city in its death throes. The undead were quickly outnumbering the living. It was obvious whatever was going on was much more than a radioactive spill. Choppers were sent in and were able to evacuate small groups of civilians that weren't infected, but the situation was becoming too dangerous to continue putting rescuers in danger. Small groups of specialized military forces weren't anywhere near enough to counter the growing number of infected. The citizens of Raccoon City were truly on their own.
We're seeing a lot of RPD and civilian activity in the downtown area.
Team 5 reporting. Gunfire near the hospital.
Understood. Move to contain.
Ma'am, please calm down. What is the nature of your emergency? Get in the window! Please help us! Ma'am?
The line is breached. We can't hold them off. They're overwhelmed! Containment failed! We need extraction!
During the chaos, a gas line was ruptured in a hotel called the Apple Inn. Raccoon City firefighters were sent in to stop the leak and look for any survivors needing help inside. But when they arrived, it was too late.
Hey! Is anybody there?
Len, you take downstairs.
What's that?
It's gonna blow!
Get out!
The explosion severely damaged the structure, killing the firefighters and setting much of the hotel on fire. 3 survivors joined forces to escape the collapsing hotel with their lives. The former Umbrella employee Yoko Suzuki, suffering from memory loss, a skilled mechanic and plumber David King, and news reporter Alyssa Ashcroft. In 1993, Alyssa and a fellow reporter named Kurt traveled into Arklay Mountains to investigate claims that Umbrella was bribing doctors to perform illegal experiments in a hospital located just outside city limits. Kurt was killed in the hospital by an infected patient, and Alyssa was taken by Umbrella. Her memories of the events were artificially suppressed, and she was released. The hospital was shut down by Umbrella, and all Alyssa remembered was that some sort of accident forced it to close. Since that time, she'd become suspicious of Umbrella like many others, and she worked to expose them. The Raccoon City outbreak just added fuel to her suspicions, and she needed to escape the hotel to tell the world what was happening inside. The Apple Inn survivors made it to the hotel lobby and were assaulted by lickers, creatures that were the result of severely injured zombies, sometimes going through another set of mutations, leaving them as blind monsters with enhanced senses, razor-sharp claws, and tongues that could whip with enough strength to slice a human in half. And blocking the exit to the hotel was a suspended, a zombie that was still going through the liquor transformation process.
Somebody help! Help me!
You made it! Get out! Hurry!
That was close. It's not just the hotel. Now the whole city is burning. You were lucky.
I earned it.
We've been patrolling the city, trying to help those in need, but it's worse than a war zone. The army's been called in. Better get out of the city while you can. I have a very bad feeling.
I clear the smell of smoke from my entire body, but the stench of death still remains. Two things are for certain. I'm alive by some miracle, and the next hell is waiting around the corner.
September 26th, 1998. As night became the early hours of the day, the survivors from the Apple Inn and Jack's Bar all took refuge inside the Raccoon City Police Department, one of the few places in the city that wasn't completely overrun just yet. The day before, refugees were being directed to take refuge here, but very few made it, and even fewer survived random zombie attacks. Different sections of the police station were barricaded as monsters made their way in. Lieutenant Marvin Branagh took command of the remaining officers and organized an effort to find an escape plan. The police department was originally an old art museum repurposed, and the blueprints described hidden passageways that may serve as possible escape routes. The officers looked up to Marvin as a strong leader since Chief Iron's behavior had become extremely erratic. When he discovered that the virus was in the city, he became paranoid that he was infected, and began ordering changes to the station's weapons and supply locations that made no sense. If the city was dying, he would take everyone down with him. This made the police defense almost completely ineffective. The security guard Mark Wilkins joined the effort to find a safe route out of the police station alongside the rest of the survivors, and he was no stranger to conflict. Mark was an experienced soldier in his youth, a veteran of the Vietnam War. He'd seen his fair share of violence, but now at the age of 52, he dreamed of nothing more than to live a life of peace with his family, who he hadn't heard from since the outbreak started. Working together with the survivors, Lieutenant Branagh discovered a secret passage inside the lobby statue, and Officer Rita Phillips agreed to explore it and return with help.
It'll take at least an hour to get through a space this narrow. Use this to keep in touch with me. It doesn't have much range, but the signal should get through if I'm close by.
Leave it to me. I promise I'll be back with help.
Marvin! Marvin!
Hey, you made it!
Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm headed your way now. I'll pull the truck up to the front gate, so get everyone together there. I won't be able to keep that position long, so hurry up, okay? I'll contact you again later.
All right, be careful.
Rita successfully made it out and found possible transportation out of the city, but the undead outside were moments away from breaking through the front gates. With Rita on the way, they had to hold out until she arrived in a desperate final stand.
Come on!
Hurry!
Come on, get in! Is this everyone? What about Marvin?
Move! Go, go, go!
Marvin!
Don't worry about me. Just get going.
No way! I'm not leaving you behind!
Whoa! Oh my God!
The memories from that steamy jungle come rushing back with all the power of a freight train. No matter how many times I hear it, it's a sound that I can't get used to. All the guilt, all the blame, rests with those of us who came out of that hell alive.
Marvin was injured during the attack, and he decided to stay behind. He had seen what happened to those that were bitten, and refused to put his fellow officers and the rest of the survivors in danger. Thanks to his actions, they were able to find a way out of the city. By early afternoon, the survivors made it past the destroyed barricade and into the Raccoon Forest near the Arclay Mountains, but at a cost. The forest was every bit as dangerous as the city. The infected were roaming the area, and the T-virus had also affected plant life, creating a fusion of undead and carnivorous plants. The police escort with them were killed along the way, and the survivors took refuge in an old cabin they discovered.
I don't get many visitors around here. I hear the city's in quite a state right about now. Well, there is an old road through these woods that leads to the neighboring town. It's easy to get lost, I'm afraid. Let me show you the way. Let's hope no one gets hurt. It's not like there's a decent hospital around here after all.
Hospital?
An old man named Al Lester that lived in the cabin guided them through the paths he claimed led to a neighboring town. But as he was guiding them, they lost him, and the path he put them on led to an abandoned hospital. Cindy and the others entered the hospital in an attempt to find a safe refuge, but were instantly attacked by a mysterious man with an axe. Alyssa Ashcroft began remembering portions of the hospital. This was the same one where her friend Kurt was killed in 1993. She had been here before. The old man Al Lester was the Axeman. Before the Arclay Hospital was closed, he was the director and head doctor. Umbrella paid him to experiment with the T-virus, a tool he believed would help him cure his wife Dorothy of cancer. During the trials he performed on patients, he discovered that his wife's cancer was disappearing alongside some of the other patients' conditions. But his happiness wouldn't last forever. The T-virus eventually mutated his wife into a zombie, and she attacked and ate the investigative journalist Kurt. An Umbrella scientist working on the Thanatos Tyrant project altered Alyssa's memories of the event to keep the truth behind the experiment's secret. Umbrella believed that the hospital was putting the company at risk and shut it down. Over the years, Dr. Lester returned to the hospital, unable to move on with his life. He loved his wife greatly, and this was the location where he had lost her. One day he discovered a mutant plant growing in the hospital, and he became convinced his wife had returned to him after hearing her voice coming from inside. Her body had fused with the plant, creating an enormous hybrid. He became obsessed with feeding the plant with small animals nearby, and in time he moved on to human victims, putting a hood over his head and slaughtering them with an axe. The constant exposure to his wife's new form slowly infected him with the T-virus strain, and combined with infected spores he breathed in, the mutations made him almost invulnerable. He could be injured, but his body would slowly repair itself. The survivors made their way through the hospital and injected portions of the plant with the serum they discovered there. The plant had covered most of the building and was keeping them locked inside, so it could feed off of them. The weaker they made the plant, the angrier and more desperate Lester the Axeman was becoming. These human monsters were harming his wife and they had to die. Cindy and the others found the core of the plant in the middle of the hospital and were forced to defend themselves.
Cindy!
So there you are, my dear. My dear Dorothy. I'll never leave your side again.
The sound of the landslide was swallowed up by the fog. All living things eventually die. The hospital itself was no different.
Al Lester and Dorothy finally died, and the hospital collapsed, ending a dark chapter for Raccoon City. The safety the survivors found within the forest was simply an illusion, and they had no option but to make their way back into the city. Perhaps they could find a way out through one of its main roads. By evening, much of the military began pulling out of Raccoon City. The infected were beginning to spread to the surrounding areas, and there were too many of them to be contained. With less military in the city, Umbrella saw this as an opportunity. They deployed their biohazard countermeasure services within city limits, the UBCS. Mercenaries hired by Umbrella, usually ex-prisoners and war criminals bribed out of the system. Umbrella used the UBCS to appear as heroes, deploying troops within the city to rescue civilians. But the company had no real plans to evacuate citizens. The UBCS were stocked with expendable troops. Only a few essential personnel were embedded within the UBCS, employees they called monitors, tasked with their real mission. The monitors were ordered to collect combat data involving Umbrella bioweapons and destroy any evidence within the city. By that evening, while more UBCS troops dropped into the city, Chief Iron sent most of the remaining Raccoon City police forces to face the zombie hordes head-on in a massive, desperate attack. The police force was wiped out. The final protectors of the city had left. The survivors from the hospital took refuge at Spencer Memorial Hospital. Their options for safety were quickly running out, and most of the doctors inside the hospital had already been killed. Infected leeches covered the bodies of some of the doctors, turning them into mindless husks that craved blood. One of the survivors, Dr. George Hamilton, worked at the hospital and was familiar with the layout and heard of secret passageways rumored to lead out of the city. He took charge and guided the rest of them through Spencer Memorial's different levels, and the leech monster was feverishly hunting them. If they had any hope of escaping, the creature would need to be dealt with. George was familiar with one room in particular that was used to perform tests on viruses to see how they would react to different temperatures. If they could lure the leeches inside, he could use the temperature room to kill it. George's plan worked, and the leech monster was destroyed. They made it to the lower levels of the hospital and discovered one of the rumored passageways leading away from it. It seemed to lead into the sewers, but whatever horrors awaited for them deep inside had to be better than the destruction happening above ground. Immediately blocking the path into the sewers was a giant infected leech, the one that was spawning all the smaller ones making their way into the hospital.
Terror is our constant companion. It lurks in the shadows, ready to strike at any moment. Today, it chose me. Yet, somehow, I kept it together in that suffocating hospital. I suppose I should be thankful for that.
Deep underground in Birkin's Nest lab, the staff was fighting and dying against the infected that made their way in from the Operation Nestwrecker attack, and bioweapons that were accidentally let loose. One of the scientists at Nest, Monica, saw Umbrella as a sinking ship and decided to steal a G larva to sell to the highest bidder, an organism created with experiments using the G virus. Monica prepared her escape by opening the sealed entrances into the labs. At the same time, the survivors from the hospital had just made their way through the sewers and encountered one of the entrances. Yoko Suzuki was with the group, someone Monica instantly recognized.
Monica? I didn't expect you to return. After your little incident, I assumed that you went and hid under a rock like the little child that you are.
What is that capsule?
Wait! Are you after this too? You are, aren't you? Oh, you are so...
Stop it. I don't understand what you're talking about.
Don't play the innocent little girl with me. You can't fool me. You could never fool me. But maybe we can work something out. Give me your ID card. Yoko, you little lifesaver. I'm so glad we had this chance to catch up. Have a nice life. What's left of it.
Yoko recognized her as Monica, but couldn't quite pinpoint exactly where she knew her from. She worked at Nest alongside her roommate Valerie, and donated tissue cells of her own for T-virus research. She was aware of some of Umbrella's experiments, but believed that the T-virus research could provide some good for humanity. As time passed, she became concerned about Umbrella's true motives, and started becoming a burden for the company. Umbrella's scientist, Dr. Greg Mueller, operated on her to wipe her memory, and they moved her into more administrative roles, away from the truth. Her roommate Valerie disappeared after she began questioning what actually happened to Yoko. Yoko explored the lab, and memories began slowly returning of her time there. Soon after Operation Nestwrecker, the hunters and a giant moth Umbrella had developed escaped from containment and slaughtered the staff. One scientist was able to reach the lab's temperature control unit and lowered the temperatures so much that the area began freezing. The hunters were susceptible to the cold and became frozen. Yoko recalled an escape platform that led to a track on the surface, but it wouldn't move if the facility remained frozen. While they searched for the temperature control room, Monica attempted to escape and would become a victim of the same G larva that she sought to sell.
Oh, give me a break. I don't believe this. Something else I have to fix to get out of here.
The survivors were able to successfully raise the temperature, which caused the ice to begin melting. With that, however, the hunters slowly awakened. They had minutes to leave before the transport train would go to the surface and leave without them.
remember my acquaintance, but I cannot remember myself. Yet I feel something will change dramatically when I know everything.
The adult G-Mutant was killed. Yoko and the survivors took the Umbrella train to an unknown destination, and hoped that it would be their final escape out of the city. But this would not be their escape. The railway cut through the middle of the city, and couldn't cross through all the debris and bodies in the way. The survivors had to get off the train and were faced with two decisions: go through zombie-infested streets, or attempt to cut through Raccoon City Zoo. They made the decision to go through the zoo since it had been closed since the infection started. They believed it would be the safer option. What they didn't realize was that the T-virus also affected most animals, turning them into raging beasts, even docile animals, such as Raccoon Zoo's Oscar the elephant. Cindy and the others found themselves being hunted by Oscar and found a zoo teeming with escaped wild animals and infected plants. The hyenas were affected, the aggression in the birds was out of control, and they were forced to cross dangerous water filled with alligators. Even the lions had escaped, all infected. There was a tram on the other side of the zoo they could possibly use to escape. Before reaching it, they needed to contain Oscar the elephant. It was too big of a risk to escape while it was rampaging in the area. Under normal circumstances, the elephant was a star attraction of the zoo, and performed multiple shows daily. Cindy found a tape with his stage music, and she played it in an attempt to lure him into his containment area. Oscar was locked away, and the survivors had to move quickly before he was able to break through the gate. It was only a matter of time. Finally, with the gate leading to the zoo exit open, they were set to escape in the tram. Oscar wasn't the only threat, however. A male lion had been tracking them and took an opportunity to attack its prey.
I was so sleepy. I only wanted to lie down and take a nap. Just a little further and my dreams would be realized. I can't believe I was that naive.
The tram was yet another failure. A helicopter that earlier attempted to rescue civilians had crashed, and the debris was blocking the path ahead. Cindy and the others were forced to head out of the tram and run through the streets of the undead. September 27th, 1998, daybreak. In the early morning hours, the survivors decided to head to the city's subway. Staying above ground was far too dangerous, and one member of the group, Jim Chapman, was a Kite Brothers railway employee. He knew the subway like the back of his hand and could guide the group to a train that led away from the center of the city. The undead were still found within the subway tunnels, but nowhere near the concentration that they were above ground. Much of the subway's power was out, and Jim made it his mission to kick the power back on and drain the water that was flooding the tunnels to the subway trains. Even with the power back on and the subway train in sight, danger was still present. Another tram lost control and crashed near them, awakening a large monster that had built a nest in the area.
gentlemen, the train will be departing shortly. Passengers awaiting the next train should stand behind the yellow line.
I'm the only one around here that knows anything about the subway. They think we can get out of town this way? Shit. The subway don't go nowhere but down.
The infected flea, the Gigabyte, was destroyed, an example of the creatures naturally occurring in the city that had been infected by the T-virus. That afternoon, UBCS missions were in full swing, with monitors attempting to cover up Umbrella activities and bringing in essential personnel. One UBCS squad led by a UBCS troop named Kraus was sent on a mission to extract an important Umbrella scientist named Dr. Cameron. She'd been performing experiments on a new T-virus strain called the Executor virus, and Umbrella lost communication with the doctor during the outbreak. Klaus and his team was following the tracker embedded in Dr. Cameron's Umbrella ID badge, following its signal to an empty warehouse on the outskirts of Raccoon City. They didn't see any sign of the doctor, but something was surely watching them. After destroying the monster, the team saw the signal was still nearby and continued following it. Unknown to them, the monster they had faced was Dr. Cameron, but she was very far from dead. During the outbreak, she had been infected by the T-virus like so many others. In an attempt to cure herself, she used the Executor virus, and it caused a violent mutation in her body. It made her effectively indestructible. The Executor virus gave her the ability to implant her consciousness, memories, and personality inside other organisms. Every cell in her body effectively became a copy of herself. Before using the virus, she knew that Umbrella would come after her work, and she refused to let them have it. Dr. Cameron desired to retake a human form and escape the city to continue perfecting it, and as the UBCS team prepared to leave, she decided to follow them in the form of other creatures. Klaus was furious that one of his men was killed under his watch, and he continued following Dr. Cameron's ID badge signal down into the sewers. The closer he got, the stronger the signal got. Eventually, he discovered the badge near the body of an infected dog, and Klaus shoved Roger, the monitor of the team, on the ground. Roger had no interest in finding the doctor. Monitors had orders of their own directly from Umbrella, and Roger was sent in to collect her data. Klaus was furious that his men had been put in danger and used as simple tools, and radioed in to UBCS Troop Ed on the surface. Two more of his men were killed by Dr. Cameron. Only Klaus and Roger remained alive. With the true mission objective completed successfully, the two of them raced away from the city, but the danger was closer than ever. Earlier, when Klaus pushed Roger on the floor, blood from the dog's body got on his face and he wiped it off. With this action, some of Dr. Cameron's infected cells entered his body, and Roger was no more.
私にとっては新鮮な実験材料。私は人間に戻る研究を続ける。アンブレラ、このデータを渡さない。
It's believed that Dr. Cameron escaped Raccoon City, and her whereabouts forever remained unknown. September 28th, 1998. By the following day, the dead outweighed the living by a massive ratio, and the number of survivors was dwindling quickly. The only remaining troops fighting against the zombie hordes were Umbrella UBCS. The outside world was still being told Raccoon City had suffered a radioactive accident of some sort, but questions and doubts were regularly being raised by the public, and with nobody watching, Umbrella took the opportunity to use Raccoon City as a testing ground. They had been monitoring the STARS members left in the city, and knew how dangerous the knowledge they held from the Spencer Mansion could be. As night fell, they loaded Project Nemesis into a chopper and prepared to deploy it inside the city. His primary mission objectives were implanted into his mind: find and destroy all remaining STARS members. Only Jill Valentine and Brad Vickers remained in the city with no way out. She'd been quarantined inside her apartment for days, hoping that the chaos outside would eventually end as the military came in, but no hope was left for the city. Nemesis had already tracked down Brad, and he somehow escaped. He tried to warn Jill the monster was coming for her, but he reached her far too late.
Hello?
Jill, are you okay?
Brad, is that you?
Listen, you gotta get out of there.
What are you talking about?
I don't have time to explain. You gotta get out of there right now.
All right, let me grab my... What the hell is that thing?
You okay?
What was that thing?
Damned if I know. But right now it's got a hard-on for the only 2 stars left in town. You and me. I'm not sticking around. Just look around you. The longer we wait, the more screwed we are.
This all happened so fast.
I don't know. One fucked up thing always leads to another. It's like Arclay on steroids. Hey, wait!
Brad! Here they come! There's so many.
Door behind you, go!
Don't think about it. We're gonna make a run for it.
Come on, Jill. We know how this ends.
No, I don't.
Are we still a team?
Always.
Then do me a favor. Don't fuck up like I did. Go!
Brad heroically put his life on the line to save Jill and give her a chance to live, perhaps making up for his failure to protect his friends in Arclay. He was bitten, and he knew well enough that meant infection for most. Jill had no choice but to run and find safety. On the way, she met a man named Dario Rosso. Jill pleaded with him to come with her for protection, but he stubbornly decided to stay behind. A chopper was flying above, telling civilians to get to the roof for extraction. Her only chance, her last escape.
Sorry. Come on. Start, damn it. It's my turn, bitch.
Hey, easy, lady. I got you.
Who are you? What are you doing?
Name's Carlos, and I'm saving you. Come on, let's get you someplace safe.
She was saved thanks to a UBCS soldier named Carlos that happened to be in the right place at the right time. Carlos and other fellow UBCS troops had been bunkered down in the subway, going out into the streets and rescuing civilians. Jill had no idea who he was at first, but when she learned that he was with Umbrella, she was immediately outraged.
Listen, I promise you're in good hands. I'm with the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service. UBCS for short.
Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? You guys are the ones who caused all of this.
Whoa, 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 whoa. What are you talking about? We're just here to help people. What's wrong with Umbrella?
What's wrong with Umbrella? Oh my god. Your company is responsible for infecting everyone.
Yeah, I don't know anything about all that. But you don't have to trust me, but I'm going to the shelter. You coming?
Like most UBCS, they had no clue they were expendable soldiers, and Umbrella had no interest in rescuing civilians. Jill agreed to help them get the subway powered back on to rescue the civilians taking refuge there. Jill made it clear that she was only going topside in order to help the innocent people caught by Umbrella's actions. To get the tram moving, she needed to program a path in the subway's computer systems for it to travel along, but power wasn't coming from the main substation. When she left the subway station, she found a city filled with the dead. Streets that were once full of life with civilians dining and shopping were now populated by the undead that she so frequently had nightmares about. It was the Spencer Mansion all over again, at an enormous scale. Fires were breaking out all over the city, and few firefighters remained to combat the destruction. The only path leading to the substation was covered in flames, and Jill had to put it out herself. Just beyond the downtown area, Jill found a wounded UBCS troop in need of help.
You're UBCS?
Yeah, careful, careful. Come on, don't look at me like that, all right? I'm not unaffected. No, wait, please!
What the fuck?
He was infected.
He might have been infected.
Oh, stars, this soft. No wonder so many of you dead.
And what are you, UBCS? Killing your own people?
He would have turned. There's your sense of self-preservation. Go back to the subway station. We don't need a bleeding heart like you getting in the way.
Nikolai ruthlessly murdered the injured Murphy Seeker, knowing that he might not have been infected. He was one of the many monitors Umbrella deployed alongside the standard UBCS troops, but he was a man consumed by his own greed. Nikolai was secretly betraying the company and feeding information to a higher-paying benefactor, Albert Wesker. Wesker survived the mansion incident and reawakened with special abilities. After the incident, he secured a powerful position with a rival organization seeking to steal Umbrella's secrets. Wesker had plans of his own and used the organization to secure his own future plans. One of his goals was to destroy Umbrella and remove it as competition. During the outbreak, he reached out to Nikolai and offered him huge sums of money for reporting back to him with bioweapon observations, and he was instructed to decrease the UBCS effectiveness in the city. But for now, he would play the role of a UBCS monitor. When Jill arrived at the substation, she discovered some sort of organic structure growing on the main power center. She had to get inside and turn the power on manually for the trams to begin moving again. Inside, she found an area infested with a nest of drain demos, parasites infected by the T-virus by feeding on zombie corpses, monsters that could implant more of their own inside the human body. Luckily, the medicinal herbs in the area could treat certain injuries and expunge the parasites from the body, while the patient fully recovered. With the power back on, all Jill had to do was program a path for the train to follow. Escape was finally near.
Enjoy.
Nemesis was still hot on Jill's trail, and he would not stop tracking her until he accomplished his mission. He had no other purpose but to destroy her. Jill was able to successfully kick the route on for the subway and rush back to Carlos. Nemesis had tracked her path and waited for her to show herself, and revealed his ability to infect zombies with parasites, making them even more deadly.
Nice job, Super Cop. I'm impressed.
We back in business?
Yeah, mostly. But we need 30 to 40 minutes to finish maintenance. Nikolai, how are we doing?
The town's crawling with those freaks. No chance of fighting our way out of the city. Why is she here?
She's helping get the trains running again.
Bad time to start carrying dead weight, friend. She's unreliable. Can't pull the trigger when it counts.
Hey, take it easy.
She'll get you killed.
Sorry about that. Everyone's a little worked up. Oh, come on. Not again.
It's me he's after.
Hey.
I'll buy you some time.
Hey, wait! Wait, Jill! No!
Jill escaped Nemesis, but found herself in the sewers separated from Carlos. They were infested with failed bioweapons known as the Hunter Gamma, a variation of Umbrella's existing Hunters. The Gamma-class Hunter was created by bonding human DNA with an amphibian egg and injecting the T-virus. The method worked to create a new life form, but they had several flaws such as sensitivity to heat, and their mouths were vulnerable to attack while feeding. Umbrella considered them impractical to use as weapons and ordered they be destroyed. But one researcher grew emotionally attached to them, and bribed a sewer manager to allow his hunters to continue growing and learning from there. Although the hunters were friendly to the researcher and his staff, they violently killed and swallowed 2 sewer workers. Jill survived the terror of the Hunter Gammas and found her way above ground, hopefully to safety. The more Jill encountered Nemesis, the more dangerous he was becoming. Umbrella was watching his progress and dropped multiple support weapons for him to use. She was battered and bruised, but escaped with her life. Barely. She had to get back to Carlos quickly so they could escape the city, but she found herself close enough to check in on an old friend.
Kaboom! Shit, Jill!
Kendo, you're alright.
Yeah, all right's a stretch. Sorry I got a little jumpy there. Didn't know quite what to expect.
No shit. Look, we're using the subway to get people out of town. You in?
Subway. Well, that's good thinking.
When we get out, there's gonna be a lot to do. We could use a man of your skill set. What's wrong?
Nothing. Just bad timing is all. Yeah. Look, don't worry about me. I'm gonna make other arrangements, okay?
You better. You're the best gunsmith around.
Oh, no.
Don't do anything stupid.
Oh, that's your job, right? Take care, Jill.
Jill offered Kendo a way out of the city, but he was hesitant to leave. He kept it to himself, but his daughter was sick, and he stayed behind to tend to her. Kendo was a close friend of Barry, and a longtime friend of the Raccoon City Stars team. He owned his own successful gun shop in the city, and used his unique gunsmith techniques to create custom weapons for the Stars team, including the famed Samurai Edge. Kendo guided Jill away from the area through the alleyway, but safety was still nowhere to be found. Nemesis was alive and well, and more determined than ever to destroy Jill after receiving an upgrade in the form of a rocket launcher.
Rocket launcher? Really? Carlos, that monster's on my ass again.
Are you shitting me? I thought you killed him.
Me too.
Come on, let's get out of here.
Jill made it back to Carlos and the others, and it was time for them to take separate paths. Mikhail was sending Carlos and his close friend and fellow UBCS soldier, Tyrell Patrick, to go back into the city and find Dr. Nathaniel Bard, a biologist employed by Umbrella. Dr. Bard was developing a T-virus vaccine that could also act to wipe out an existing infection in the body. A vaccine and cure all in one. He'd been reaching out for extraction for days, and Jill would take the tram out of the city with Mikhail and Nikolai. September 29th, 1998.
You don't really think a pencil pusher like Bart is still alive, do you?
I have it on good authority. Why? Are you worried about teammates? Or something else? Funny how brainless zombies can ambush a platoon like that. Funny the gate was locked. Don't you think?
What was that? How is this fucker not dead yet?
Oh, they're gone. Yup, this way.
Nikolai, what are you doing?
It's not after you.
Nikolai!
Get off my train. Shit's fired up.
Nikolai revealed himself as a traitor, only caring about his own safety. He was already impressed with Jill's skills and attitude and enjoyed watching her struggle to survive. Carlos and Tyrell arrived at the Raccoon City police station on the way to the hospital to try and establish contact with Dr. Bard, using STAR's office equipment, and could hear a struggle in the distance. Lieutenant Marvin Branagh was one of the few officers left inside. He had quickly cleaned up the wound he suffered previously, and luckily it was just a surface scratch that tore the flesh, saving him from infection. But a freshly turned zombie could still retain some sense of smell and detect the blood.
Come on, man. Not you too. Sorry. Sorry.
Shit, it's locked.
You stay on the door. I got this fucker.
Open!
Where'd that cop go?
Don't know, don't care. We got a job to do.
Marvin ran into the station. Carlos and Tyrell ran after him to see if they could help, but once they entered, he was gone. Days ago, the station had been used as a refuge for civilians, but with the undead in such large numbers, it collapsed. Tyrell unlocked the emergency shutters so Carlos could get through to the STAR's office, while he continued investigating what happened in the station, and he discovered new terrors.
What the hell was that thing?
Carlos found a mix of civilian and police officers among the zombies, and some of them had even transitioned into the Licker-class bioweapon. It was clear to Carlos that the police station was a lost cause for survivors. He felt uncomfortable with the thought of shooting the officers, but nothing could be done to help them. His only goal now was to reach the STAR's office and see if their communication system still worked. Before reaching the STAR's office, he had to travel through a station filled with the now undead bodies of former survivors that took refuge in the station and the police officers sworn to protect them.
Move.
After creating a pathway to the STAR's office hallway and fighting off more of Umbrella's monsters, Carlos was able to successfully contact Dr. Bard, who was trapped inside Spencer Memorial Hospital surrounded by monsters with no way out.
Dr. Bard.
Oh, thank God. Do you know how long I've been trying to reach somebody?
Don't worry, we're gonna get you out of there. Just tell me where you are.
I'm trapped in a goddamn hospital, surrounded by every kind of abomination. Look, just send in stars. They're gonna know what to do.
No, negative. RPD's overrun too.
Then figure it out! Umbrella's gone crazy. They're killing all the researchers. I am the only one who knows how to make the vaccine to stop the zombies. So you can either sit there with your dick in your hand or send somebody who's capable of getting me the hell out of here.
I like him already.
Yeah, you would. You heard what he said. We can't turn him over to the company.
That's not our call to make. That's Mikhail's call. I'm gonna check the computer, see if I can trace the doc's location.
While Carlos and Tyrell looked around the STAR's office and formulated a plan to extract the doctor, Jill struggled to escape the wreckage of the crashed tram. She was hurt, but alive, and was still too deep underground to contact Carlos. As she ran outside, she could still hear Nemesis in the distance. The monster was still alive somehow. With a clear signal, she could now contact Carlos and call for help, but she would have to survive on her own for now.
Bitch can't even swim. Carlos, respond.
Yeah, what's up? Derailed. Was anyone hurt?
Everybody's dead. Mikhail, everybody. Nikolai left us to die.
Wait, what? Jill, come in! T, I gotta go.
Do what you gotta. I'll take care of Bart.
Jill unloaded everything she had left on the monster, but Nemesis had mutated to a point where even several grenade rounds were easily survivable. Umbrella had truly created a tyrant that far surpassed anything she witnessed in the Spencer Mansion incident. Any normal civilian would have perished taking on the creature, but Jill Valentine was a trained professional that fought alongside Chris Redfield. She wouldn't allow herself to be an easy target for Umbrella. She had been through too much because of their actions, and she had too much information on their activities. She had to survive and expose them.
Right, let's do this. Carlos, you still there? Come on, you're gonna crap out on me now?
Interesting. You've done me a big favor, Miss.
Join me next time for the Resident Evil Timeline City of the Dead 2.0. Chapter 2. With Jill in critical condition and the virus quickly ravaging her body, Carlos desperately searches for a cure in a race against time, while rookie police officer Leon S. Kennedy and Chris Redfield's younger sister Claire Redfield enter the city, completely unaware of the events of the previous days. And as the end of Raccoon City approaches, the survivors still working together to find a safe way out, discover a heartbreaking truth. Since you made it to the end of this video, I assume you enjoyed it, so why don't you go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any new content. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, links in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can join my Patreon or become a channel member. This is Fabian, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.